Italy, a sudden massive hailstorm has caused extensive damage across Italy, paralyzing major cities and devastated vast agriculture areas. This extreme weather struck late Monday night, battered region from Lombardy to Tuscany, with the hailstones the size of a golf ball and a wind exceeded 100 km per hour. It left a trail of destruction, flooding and chaos. Residents in Milan, Bologna and Parma reported scenes of panic in the dark storm cloud relating in an eerily sunlight with minutes. It was followed a deafening onslaught, hail smashed roofs, shattered car windows and tearing streets and frozen rivers. It sounded like an explosion, said Franza Bianchi, a shop owner in the Milan. The hailstorm hit so hard they bent to mental separate inward. The fire department across northern Italy received over 2,000 emergency calls, reported to trapped drivers and clearing roads buried under the layer of ice. Power lines shattered, trees and uprooted an entire region, plunging into darkness overnight. Train services were halted in multiple areas, while the Milan-Malnesa airport and Bologna-Guglielmo Marconi airport experienced a delay in cancellation due to heavy hail estimated on runways. Rome, Italy. A powerful and sudden hailstorm brought the Italian capital to the standstill, transforming the historic streets into frozen torrential and leaving residents in shock. Within minutes, dark clouds gathered over the eternal city, unleashed the violent downpour of ice that covered cars, monuments, and pigeons under the thick layer of white. Meteorologists described the event of extreme collective cell, an unusual atmospheric clash between warm Mediterranean humidity and a cold Arctic front. Hailstones, some exceeded 3 cm in diameter, pounded rooftops and vehicles. Standing off alarm across the city, wind gusts reached nearly 100 km/h, intensified the destruction, uprooted trees and scattered debris along the Tiber River. Emergency service received over 120 calls. In 2 hours, dozens of vehicles were abandoned the submerged streets, and firefighters working tirelessly to free people trapped in the underpasses. Several metro lines and bus roads were suspended due to flooding and power outage. It looked like a scene from the disaster movie, said resident Jill Lombardy. In a few minutes, day turned into night, and the streets became a river in the ice.
Piazza Domo, একেবারে তলায় গেছে। আমার রেস্টুরেন্টে পানি ঢোকার সম্ভাবনা বেশি, আমার রেস্টুরেন্টের পাশেই ঘটনা।
Rome came to a sudden halt after a severe hailstorm swept through the city, flooding the streets, paralyzing traffic, and shocking residents with the scale of the event. In the matter of minutes, large hailstones covered squares and boulevards, transformed parts of the Italian capital into winter scenes in the middle of autumn. Meteorologists explained that the storm was caused by the collisions of the most Mediterranean air with the approaching cold front, which caused severe thunderstorms capable of producing hailstones up to 4 cm in diameter. The storm in both the city center of the surrounding suburbs damaged cars, broke windows, and blocked drainage systems. Public transport was severely disrupted. Buses were stuck in flooding underpasses, and trams stopped because the tracks were covered in ice. Passengers described it chaotic scenes. It was like driving balls. To had to stop and wait because it was impossible to see the road, said Marco, a local taxi driver. Emergency service responded to hundreds of calls. A rescue driver stuck in rising waters to help in precedent to the injured after slipping in the sidewalks, make slippery by The Italian capital was through the initial turmoil after sudden and violent hailstorm hit the Rome, covering the streets with the ice, damaged vehicles and leaving residents stranded. The storm, which arrived without warning, was declared a meteorologist is one of the most intense hail in the city has in the decades. Within minutes, the sky darkened over the central room before unleashing the barrage of hailstones, some the size of golf ball. The streets around the Colosseum, Piazza Venezia and Trastevere was transformed into rivers of ice. Video shared on social media showed scooters and cars are skidding out of control while passengers rolled their shoulders in subway station. It sounded like the gunshot of roofs, said residents. Chiara Lombardi was a car white plate was shattered. In 15 minutes everything was destroyed. Emergency service responded the hundreds of calls or rescue drivers trapped in the flooded overpasses and removing fallen branches. At least 25 people were injured, mainly is broken glass and debris. The Italian island of Sicily is battering catastrophic flooded under unprecedented rain, turned entire town into disaster zone. Meteorologists have described this storm as a once-of-the-century event, and official warning the full extent of the damage is not yet known. The streets of Palermo turned into rivers, cars were swept away by a building, and underground garages were flooded in a matter of minutes. In Catania, residents were forced in a wet chest deep through the metro in the city center, and hospital reported serious damage to emergency rooms. Messina, Sorrento, and rural mountain community were cut off by landslides. In less than a day, more than 215 millimeters of rain fell, almost as much in 4 months. Italy's Civil Protection Agency issued a red alert, urged residents to stay indoors. Helicopters and rescue boats worked around the clock to evacuate families trapped on the upper floor. At least 10 people were killed and more than injured and missing. I thought that it was the end, said Salvador Vital, a 64-year-old farmer who lost the livestock while floods inundated his field.